From the very first second, Nope makes it clear that this will not be a familiar experience. There is no loud music signaling danger. No immediate explanation. No rush to reassure the audience. What dominates the screen instead is space. Wide open space. A sky that feels too large. And a silence that lingers just long enough to become unsettling. The story begins far from crowded cities, highways, and towering buildings. This is an isolated stretch of land where the horizon never seems to end, and the sky occupies more visual space than anything built by human hands. It's a place where distance matters, where sound travels differently, and where there is nowhere to hide your eyes. That choice is deliberate. From the beginning, the film places the viewer in an environment without visual shelter. There are no narrow hallways, no dark basements, no claustrophobic interiors. Everything happens in the open. Everything is exposed. And above it all, the sky is always there. Even when no one is actively looking up, it dominates the frame. It looms. It watches in silence. Life in this place moves at a steady, almost monotonous pace. Work is done methodically. Animals are cared for with precision. Days pass without obvious disruption. On the surface, nothing appears wrong. But the calm never feels comforting. There is a sense of suspension, as if the environment itself is waiting. The quiet doesn't relax the viewer, it demands attention. The sky isn't just background anymore. It feels present, heavy, aware. Small interruptions begin to appear. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that immediately screams danger. Objects fall where they shouldn't. Sounds echo without a visible source. Brief moments of confusion appear and vanish before they can be fully understood. Each event, on its own, could be explained away, and that is what makes them unsettling. The film doesn't underline these moments. It doesn't draw attention to them with dramatic cues. Jordan Peele, from comedy to controlled fear. Before becoming one of the most discussed filmmakers of his generation, Jordan Peele built his career in a completely different world. He started in comedy. For years, Peele was known as a performer, writer, and sketch comedian. His work focused on sharp observations of human behavior, social dynamics, and cultural tension, always filtered through humor. Timing, surprise, and audience expectation were his tools. What many didn't realize at the time was how closely comedy and horror are related. Both depend on rhythm. Both rely on anticipation. Both work best when they disrupt what the audience thinks is coming next. When Peele announced he would direct a horror film, there was skepticism. The industry didn't immediately trust a comedian stepping into a genre traditionally associated with a very different type of filmmaker. Peele has spoken openly about this period, about having to prove himself not just as a first-time director, but as someone intentionally breaking expectations. Success opened doors, but it also created pressure. With Nope, Peele made a clear decision. He would not repeat himself. He would not deliver a safe, easily digestible experience. Instead, he would push further into discomfort, ambiguity, and restraint. In interviews, Peele explained that Nope was built around a simple question. Why do we feel the need to look? Why do humans insist on watching, recording, and capturing everything, especially when it's dangerous? Rather than answering that question directly, Peele chose to build a film that forces the audience to experience it. A film designed to make you look up. From the earliest stages of development, Nope was conceived as a large-scale project. Peele didn't want a small, enclosed horror story. He wanted openness, distance, exposure. That decision came with consequences. Shooting in real locations meant relying on weather, light, and silence. It meant waiting for the right sky, the right wind. OJ Haywood, the man who watches without challenging. At the center of the story is OJ Haywood, a quiet, restrained figure whose presence is defined more by observation than by action. OJ makes his living training and handling horses for film and television productions. It is a profession that demands patience, discipline, and a deep understanding of animal behavior. Horses are not props to him. They are living beings with instincts, boundaries, and limits that must be respected. This way of life shapes OJ's personality. He does not speak unless necessary. He avoids confrontation. He watches before reacting. OJ understands something fundamental that others often overlook. Animals respond poorly to force control. When pushed beyond their limits, they become dangerous, not out of malice, but out of instinct. Early in the film, OJ's life is disrupted by a sudden loss that forces him into a position of responsibility he never actively sought. His grief is internal. He does not express it openly. Instead, it manifests through withdrawal and silence. Within the narrative, OJ represents someone who senses danger before it becomes obvious. He notices patterns. He observes changes in behavior, both in animals and in the environment. Long before he can explain what is happening, he feels that something is wrong. When strange events begin to occur, OJ's instinct is not to investigate aggressively. It is to adapt, to learn, to avoid provoking whatever force might be responsible. He does not seek attention. He does not chase recognition. His goal is survival. As the story progresses, OJ becomes the character most aligned with the idea of coexistence rather than domination. He understands that some forces do not respond to challenge, and that looking directly at danger can itself be an act of aggression. Emerald Haywood, the voice, the energy, the drive. Where OJ is quiet, Emerald Haywood is expressive. She talks. She moves. She fills space. Emerald is charismatic, fast-talking, and visibly frustrated with being overlooked. Unlike her brother, she thrives on interaction. She understands people. She knows how to sell an idea, tell a story, and command attention. Although she is part of the same family business, Emerald has never fully felt ownership over it. She wants more than maintenance. She wants recognition. She wants credit. She wants visibility. Her personality is shaped by ambition and impatience. Emerald believes that opportunity favors those who act, not those who wait. When something unusual begins to happen, she doesn't just see danger, she sees potential. To her, the extraordinary is not something to avoid. It is something to capture. Within the film's structure, Emerald represents the human desire to turn experience into achievement. She understands that proof changes everything. If something can be documented, it becomes real, valuable, and undeniable. This belief pushes her forward even when caution would suggest retreat. Her dynamic with OJ creates tension that drives much of the narrative. Where he hesitates, she pushes. Where he observes quietly, she speaks openly. Where he senses risk, she calculates reward. Emerald is not reckless out of ignorance. She is reckless out of belief. Belief that control is possible if the right steps are taken. As events escalate, Emerald is forced to confront the cost of that belief. Ricky, Jupe Park, the man who survived the spotlight. Few characters in Nope are as shaped by their past as Ricky Jupe Park. As a child, Jupe was part of a highly popular television show. His early fame placed him in front of cameras long before he was capable of understanding what that exposure meant. During one of those productions, a traumatic incident occurred, one that permanently altered his relationship with danger, performance, and survival. Jupe lived through something he should not have survived. But survival did not bring clarity. Instead of processing the trauma, Jupe built his adult identity around it. He transformed his past into a narrative, a story of resilience, a spectacle of survival. In the present, Jupe runs a desert-based attraction designed to entertain audiences with controlled danger. He believes he understands how to manage extraordinary forces because he has faced one before. That belief defines him. Jupe does not see risk the way others do. To him, danger is something that can be negotiated with, managed, even monetized. He confuses familiarity with control. Within the story, Jupe represents denial disguised as confidence. He believes that because he survived once, he is uniquely qualified to engage with the unknown again. The film quietly reveals how dangerous that assumption is. Jupe does not view the phenomenon in the sky as a threat. He sees it as an extension of the spectacle that has defined his life. Something to be presented, something to be scheduled, something to be watched safely. That miscalculation carries devastating consequences. Antlers Holst enters the story as an almost mythical figure, a cinematographer whose reputation is built on capturing images others cannot or will not attempt. Antlers lives for the shot. He is quiet, intense, and emotionally distant. Risk does not frighten him. For Antlers, the value of an image is directly proportional to how difficult it is to obtain. He believes certain moments exist only once, and that failing to capture them is a kind of failure itself. Within the narrative, Antlers represents the extreme end of observation. Where Emerald sees opportunity, Antlers sees destiny. He is fully aware of the danger. Antlers is not reckless in the traditional sense. To him, capturing the ultimate image is worth any sacrifice. The film uses Antlers to explore how obsession can override self-preservation. When observation stops being curiosity and becomes purpose, survival becomes secondary. The cast. Daniel Kaluuya, who plays OJ Haywood, built his career on restraint. Raised in London by Ugandan parents, he worked for years in British television before gaining international recognition. His acting style relies on subtlety and internal conflict, making him ideal for a character who communicates more through presence than words. Keke Palmer, portraying Emerald Haywood, began her career as a child star. While early fame brought visibility, it also created obstacles in adulthood. By expanding into hosting, music, and production, she reclaimed creative control. In Nope, her charisma and energy redefine how audiences perceive her as an adult actress. Steven Yeun, who plays Jupe, immigrated from South Korea as a child and rose to fame through television before taking career risks in independent cinema. His performance reflects a character shaped by unresolved trauma and false confidence. Michael Wincott, known for intense, unconventional roles, embodies obsession as Antlers Holst, completing a cast defined by contrast and depth. The production of Nope was as demanding as the story it tells. Filming took place primarily in open desert regions of California, chosen to emphasize exposure, isolation, and the dominance of the sky. Jordan Peele wanted real landscapes, not studio sets, which meant relying heavily on weather, natural light, and silence. One of the biggest technical challenges was filming the sky itself. Peele insisted on using IMAX cameras, an unusual choice for a horror film, to force audiences to physically look upward. With an estimated budget of around $68 million, it stood far above the typical costs of the genre. At the box office, Nope opened strongly in the United States, earning roughly $44 million in its opening weekend. Its worldwide gross reached approximately $170 million. Its final impact lies not in what it explains, but in what it leaves unresolved, inviting audiences to decide when looking becomes a mistake.